Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all signing on. We're here at Silicon Dragon, and we are going to be having a wonderful speaker today, Michael Wolf, co-founder and CEO of Activate Consulting. He's joining us today and has some slides to show us as well. So it's going to be very interesting. And Michael, a little bit about Michael. He has a wonderful background, former president, CEO at MTV Networks. He had been at McKinsey before that, working in their media, entertainment, and internet practice. He was a senior partner at Booz Allen, and he's been a board member at Sotheby's and Yahoo, Columbia University education. And so Michael, quite a background there. And I know that you started Activate Consulting about what?
11 years ago.
11 years ago. And so what you're really covering is all these disruptive trends in gaming and crypto and NFTs and e-commerce and the metaverse, and how it all looks for going ahead into 2022 and 2023 and beyond. So I'm going to let Michael share some slides here, and I'm going to stop share, and Michael will take over for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back on and have a chat.
Rebecca, thank you very much for having me. And just to give you some background, every year for the past 7 years, my team spends the better part of 9 months putting together, carrying out extensive research around many of the trends that are going to reshape technology and media. And we've just published this. It's on our site, which is at activate.com. So if you want to see everything, but I thought it'd be interesting to just share some of the conclusions, some of the things that we're seeing more as examples.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So can you see everything? Rebecca,
I can.
are you okay?
Yeah,
okay.
And we have participants on too. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So we start with the most important person in technology, which is the user. And what we've been doing is we've been looking at multitask time for many years. And I don't want to make this numbers heavy, but these numbers are startling. So if you think about a multitask day, the average user is spending roughly 12 hours and 16 minutes in 2018, 12 hours and 16 minutes with technology and media, the full range of activities. Last year, that jumped up to 13 minutes and 11 seconds. And then, 13 hours. 13 hours a day. It's now being sustained. And so if you look at this in terms of, and I'm hoping, Rebecca, can we still see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is interesting. If you look at the purple, that shows you, and each of these shows you, if I break that day into 15 minutes, what you see is that the majority of it's video, and then followed by audio, and then followed by gaming, and then you end up with other screen time like social, so and messaging. So the amount of time that people, again, predominantly videos, which gives you a sense of why every tech company has now gone into subscription video. Then let's talk about something called super users. So super users, 26% of all users are what we would call super users, and the other 74% are all other users. Now look at the amount of time they spend. 17 hours a day. Multitask time is what super users spend compared to 9 hours a day with all other users. It's important to point out every technology company is going to be focused on these users. And the reason is because of how much money they spend. So they account for 42% of all video spend, and I'll explain why. 74% of all spend on gaming and 80% spent on music and podcasts. So this is going to be a place where there's lots of interest. Now, let's talk about short form video. Everybody knows about what's happening with Snap and with with TikTok and knows how much time people are spending with it. But if you look at every one of the other social networks is launching a short form video product. So like Instagram, August 2020, they launched, then you had Snap, then you had YouTube, and Facebook just ported over what they were doing with Reels into Facebook. And okay, let's look at like, who are these people? And what's fascinating, we have the ability to figure out who are the top influencers on each of those platforms. And TikTok, it's interesting, you wouldn't have expected this, but BTS and then Kylie Jenner, then you names that everybody knows like Charli D'Amelio. These are the top influencers on Facebook. And people have heard of these and many have not. And then this is what's on YouTube. Interestingly enough, there's only one person, that's Starman, who overlaps with any of the other platforms. Everything else, everybody else is unique to what people are doing on these platforms and what people are interested in. Now, we know that everybody has been using more subscription video services. And we've been tracking this going back to 2016. So in 2016, the average person paid for 1.6 video subscriptions. And at the time, everybody said, well, nobody's going to keep stacking these subscriptions. This year, we forecast by the end of the year that the average subscriber is going to have 4.4 services. And within 3 years, we're going to be at 5.8 video services. So this is sent. I showed you the amount of time people are spending. Not surprising that the number of subscriptions that they're going to have. And let's talk about music. Average person 2019 was listening to 1.6 services. Now they're using 2.6 services. So they may have like Apple Music or Spotify, but they're also using YouTube or other free services that are out there to listen to music. It just ends up being like different occasions, or they're using Spotify and Pandora. Social and live audio. So Clubhouse launches beginning of last year. Within less than 12 months, within less than 12 months, they're already at tens of millions of users. So you see everybody else then launches. So it becomes a mainstream. So Discord, they launch their audio channels. Twitter launches their spaces. Like, give them credit. They were up and running very fast. June of this year, you've got Facebook launching. Spotify in June also launches. And then Call-in is just a month ago. So social live audio, mainstream. So TikTok, most of the music discovery now is on TikTok. And so almost 40% of 18 to 34-year-olds are finding the music that they want. They're seeing it on TikTok. Esports, amazing. Most people in America didn't understand esports. We're at about 550 million today in terms of the number of people who are going to be watching. This is global. 725 million by 2025. I mean, this is amazing growth. It's like, and what's more important is it's a gateway to all sorts of other technology and media experiences, whether it's VR or crypto or betting and gambling. Esports is the gateway. Okay, let's talk about e-commerce. Again, Rebecca wanted me to be careful about not sharing too many numbers, but even the most expensive and complex categories are moving online. So we have in 2021, 2% of all sales, of auto sales, are end-to-end e-commerce. In other words, totally touchless. We forecast that 10 to 15% of cars will be sold by 2025. So to put that into perspective, that's $150 billion of revenue that's going to go to e-commerce. It's extraordinary. That's more than it's been a couple of years ago. So it's going to add maybe 10% to all e-commerce. What's enabling this? Well, there's all sorts of ways. So this is an augmented reality app from Porsche that allows you to put the car into your own driveway. So you don't have to go to a showroom. I just want to make sure, Rebecca, if everybody can see this and can see the animation.
Yeah.
Okay. So then here's another app. This is from IKEA. You point your phone and it shows you, and this is an app from Europe, basically allows you to show the shelves of the sofa wherever you want to put them before a moving van comes. And we think that e-commerce is going to break out of the confines of retail. This is in Fortnite, your ability to buy clothing, to pick out. This is not the game itself. This is your ability to dress a character, to take your avatar, put clothing on it. I mean, we should expect to see virtual fashion taking off. And then this is just some examples of virtual fashion. You've got NFTs all the way to the right-hand side, which are sneakers. You've got different jackets. And when we talked about this last year, people thought we were nuts. And now everybody understands what it's going to mean. Okay, NFTs, $8 billion this year, and the year's not even over. And if you look at all these companies on the right, it's Tops and Top Shot, $700 million from the NBA. Let me go through some of these examples. So you've got NFTs. You've got The Undertaker, who is WWE's biggest star. He's selling NFTs. You've got Top Shot, which is from the NBA. They've sold $700 million worth of NFTs this year so far. And you've got the Coca-Cola bubble jacket, which you're seeing everywhere. And it's good. And you can use it inside of Decentraland, which is a metaverse game. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Why are they buying them? Well, 76% of it's investment, it's speculation, and 32% is a novelty. I think we're going to see this more if you look at some of the things about supporting athletes down at the bottom. What's fascinating is that if you buy a baseball card today, the athlete only gets paid on the sale of the cardboard. When it becomes an NFT, they can get royalties every time that card trades. And it's one of the reasons why you see new ventures like One Team, where the players associations are getting together and with Redbird Capital, and they're creating a whole new set of NFTs because this is much better for the players. Okay, I know, Becca, you have a global audience here. Yeah. We expect video games, 165 billion today. Within 4 years, 221 billion globally. Like nothing else is, and people are spending, the number of gamers is going up, 151 million in the US. Average monthly spend still going up. I mean, you would normally not see, when you add a whole bunch of other people, you wouldn't see the average spend go up. This is all about multi-platform franchises. So if you the icons on the top show the number of platforms. So you've got PlayStation, Xbox, PC. You've got with NBA 2K 2020, you've got also Nintendo Switch. And what you see is these are the biggest franchises, and these are the ones, they're all on multiple platforms. Here's what's important for the metaverse. 60% of gamers have participated in other activities in games that have nothing to do with the gameplay. So it's watching movies, it's dating, it's getting married, it's meeting people, it's concerts and shopping. So you begin to understand like why gaming is so important as you talk about the metaverse. And also these are all the activities that people are doing inside of games. And so our view is that everything you can do today in the digital world or the real world, you're going to be able to do within gaming and the metaverse. And so it's all of these activities, like you're talking about learning, talking about search, all of them within inside of games. This shows on the left-hand side all the major pieces of the gaming world, and you see that like every one of the major tech platforms is one or the other getting into this. Netflix just bought a gaming service, but and you go over the Microsoft, you'd forget you thought about Microsoft as enterprise. Actually, Microsoft is full stack player in gaming. Sony, full stack player. Tencent, Facebook, they just changed their name a couple of hours ago to Meta. Shows they're going to be in gaming just a few hours ago. So let's talk about metaverse. You would have thought 2021 is the time that tech discovers the metaverse. Now, you have to add on top of it Facebook's rebrand, but these are all, you would have thought this was the year. These are headlines from 15 years ago. People speculating that IBM would own the metaverse, that that the metaverse would be open source. So people have been talking about this for a long time. Here's a timeline. What you see is that going back to the early 2000s, you had Sims, you had Second Life. Suddenly, all these other games come on board. You've got a Marshmallow concert inside of Fortnite. You've got Decentraland, Upland. These are much more about owning different parts of land within metaverse platforms, Animal Crossing, and then you've got all these new technologies that come along, going back to the early 2000s to Xbox, Twitch, 4G, and then 5G. And then going forward, we're going to see everything from Facebook Horizon, which you haven't tried it. It's great. Put on a VR headset. We've got Top Shot with NFTs. We've got 6G coming on board. It's rumored that we're going to have an augmented reality from Apple. Let's see what happens here. Let's talk about what I mean by metaverse. Three things. There are lots of complicated definitions. There's three things: social and non-game experiences inside of games, users creating and contributing, and then AR and VR, they're really the bridge. It allows you, VR lets you go deeper into a virtual world. AR lets you take that virtual world to the rest of your real world. And eventually this ends up being, digital twin of the physical world that you can participate in. I believe, my team believes, all of our research shows one thing: games are the only path. They're already at scale. The infrastructure is there. People are creating content. They've got IP, and people are already spending time in non-game experiences. So let's talk about the kind of games I'm talking about. They're all becoming metaverse platforms. Everything from Minecraft, where people constructed their own, last year they constructed virtual versions of their campuses. Decentraland is where you can buy games. Where you can buy real estate online. Looking at all these games, some of them you may not have heard. Roblox, which went public early this year, it's got millions of people participating in metaverse activities. Same thing is true. We knew about Second Life years ago, but Fortnite, Axie Infinity, amazing platform for NFTs and gaming. And then you've got all of these experiences. So Roblox, Lil Nas X gave a concert earlier this year. Ariana Grande inside of Fortnite. Decentraland, you can buy property, and there's all sorts of other activities that are going on inside of it. Grand Theft Auto. In Grand Theft Auto, there is a casino. It has nothing to do with the games. Pretty soon, people are going to be using that casino for real world gaming. Rec Room, you've got laser tag inside of a game. These are all metaverse platforms. And then finally, within NBA 2K22, you can do a lot of other things. You can go to a concert, you can get coffee with a friend. They have nothing to do with the gameplay. These are activities that are taking place inside of games. And it just shows you why the games are going to be somewhat important for Metaverse. It's VR and AR, they're the bridge. This shows you on left-hand side, it's VR, like the fight footage from Samsung and UFC. The right-hand side is Snap is the biggest augmented reality platform in the world. And there's all sorts of local lenses where you can put yourself in context. Metaverse entire economy is going to be built around this. Digital goods and services, virtual shopping and fashion that I showed you before, Upland, where it's real estate. And people talk about interoperability for the Metaverse. It's all going to happen through third-party platforms, whether it's Discord or Venmo or SoundCloud, Steam. It's all about those platforms that are not part of each of these metaverses. And that's it. That's all she wrote in terms of the opportunities for our view about what's happening and what are the opportunities.
Okay, well, that's a lot to absorb, and you really covered it very nicely, and your slides are very engaging. So congratulations on that. I know
Thank
this
you,
is your
Rebecca.
7th annual Outlook on tech and media. Is this your most exciting year?
I mean, every year is our most exciting year. I have a team. My team's about 50 people, and average age is about 27. And they started the year off and they said, what are the big things that we think are going to be important? And some of them are things that I didn't go over just now, but they looked at cryptocurrency and they said, cryptocurrency, we've got to cover it. They said data and new database platforms, absolutely. And they looked at Metaverse and they said, everybody's talking about the Metaverse. What is it? Let's figure out what it is and how it comes about. So
yeah.
Every year is exciting for us. I think we're this is like the Macy's parade. We're already they start planning the next year. 15 minutes after it ends, my team is already planning next year.
So as I was looking at your slides and digesting all this information, I was just wondering, is it mainly the disruptors that are leading the charge here, or the traditional companies that are being able to pivot into these new areas? Is it startups? Is it the big tech companies? Who's driving this innovation?
It's a great question, Rebecca. What we're seeing is a lot of innovation is coming out of small companies that come out of nowhere and drive change. So you look at some of these companies. TikTok, like, came out of nowhere. Now more
Came out of China.
Yeah, but I mean more usage than Instagram and so many of the other platforms out there than LinkedIn. You look at what's happened with Clubhouse, new platform. As I mentioned, every major tech company will launch their own version of, if they haven't, of Clubhouse. And then you look at gaming, and yes, it's the big gaming companies, but it's also games, Upland, that nobody knew about before, Decentraland. You've got Sandbox, which is a place you can buy NFTs. So there's a lot of innovation, but we believe that the biggest tech companies will buy that innovation. And if you consider the market caps of all the video game companies, any of the major video game companies, the big tech platforms can buy them for the value of one day's volatility of their stocks. So
right.
Innovation from smaller companies, as you expect, the bigger companies will try to gobble them up.
So how do you think COVID has impacted the innovation pipeline? Has it sped things up or not?
What's happened is it's accelerated most of the trends that we expected to see in the future. So for example, grocery shopping, we had come up, I'm going to do a bad job of quoting the numbers, but we had our forecasts for 2025 for the number of people shopping online grocery, the last year blew the roof off of those, and the entire line shifted up. So what we're seeing is things that I wouldn't have expected. Video game time went way up. People use these video games. So Animal Crossing, a lot of dating happened within Animal Crossing. There were weddings in Animal Crossing. You couldn't get together. And so not only did you see social activity, but you saw political activity. I mean, the Biden campaign did ads and created parts of Animal Crossing. So last year, much more time spent with technology and media innovation because it wasn't just convenient, it was necessary. And so much of what we're seeing, things like virtual fashion and skins and virtual hairstyles, it all happened because people were stuck at home and didn't have anything else to do. Mm-hmm. What I believe in our research shows is it's going to be sustained.
Okay, yeah, that was one of my questions, is how much of this is going to be a fad, because Clubhouse came on and it was so quickly, took off, but then it kind of plateaued. So how many of these other new ideas are going to follow that same path, or are they going to keep going?
I mean, you come back to Clubhouse, social audio. It's really social audio. It's here to stay. It's going to take different forms, but a lot of these they're not fads any longer. And so you consider Carvana Vroom, which is really the two places you can buy a car online. They're used cars online, and people are looking at them totally touchless. Now people say, I can buy a car. I don't have to go into a dealership. I want a touchless experience. And it's what's going to do, it's going to drive the other car sites and as well as dealers to start selling cars end-to-end touchless. Because he found out, like, I can buy a car, I don't have to go into a dealership. It'll be delivered at my door and they'll guarantee it. Right. Connected fitness trend began. Yes, we had Peloton for a while. You look at brands like Echelon. Echelon took off once again, coming out of nowhere. And people realized, I can do fitness at home. I don't have to go to a gym. I can have a video experience and I can have trainers. And so I don't think we're going in reverse on any of this.
So, but what about those that are in the middle of the country and those who are older, let's say they're past 30 years age? Is there anything in there for them? Are they going to actually become part of this whole digital world? Or is it just going to end up being like a coastal elite kind of thing where you have to have either a teenage son or daughter, or you have to be really around young people all the time to grasp some of these ideas and let them become part of your lifestyle? So is there anything in there for older people and people who are between the coasts?
Yeah, you've put your finger on the question that literally is on everybody's minds. Is this just coasts? What happens in the middle of the country? What happens to people whose livings and lives have been like totally changed by COVID? And I think that it is changing those parts of the world. It is, people are participating. So the major subscription video services, they've all created ad-free versions, and then versions with ads. And the versions with ads are seeing big pickup. Then we've got Tubi and Pluto, and these are totally free.
Yeah.
You've got video games. Mobile games are being played. If you've got a mobile phone, people are playing mobile games. We've got broadband has become much more affordable, especially as the wireless companies offer you unlimited data. Mm-hmm. And that at the same time, we've got 14 million homes in the United States are people who don't have cable and don't have broadband. They're getting TV over the air, and suddenly we see more digital experiences coming from them in terms of broadband. So you don't want to pay for anything. You want to just watch it on your phone. You can watch lots of shows on Tubi or Pluto, and you're going to have more. So I don't think this is just an East Coast phenomenon.
Okay, so if you don't have the extra disposable income, you might not be left behind because some of these things are free anyhow.
Yeah, yeah, and Netflix and others have had less penetration with older audiences, and that's changing now.
Mhm.
People are discovering, and again, try out Tubi or Pluto, and they're great. Zoom, you can try them out. They're great services.
Yeah, I like Pluto. I use that a lot. So for the average consumer, how much are they spending on these kinds of services? In your research study, are they spending like $100 a month on these kind of things, or more than that? I was give me an idea of how much you need before
Well, if you're
participate.
yeah, I mean, the average person on video, on streaming video, is spending somewhere between $40 to $50 a month. And Rebecca, what has changed?
What about all these services though?
Well, I'm talking about the subscription services. Well, people are churning around on them.
Mhm.
What has been somewhat has changed is, and the perception is, that you had a lot of these cheaper cable substitutes, whether it was YouTube TV or Direct TV. Now, all of those services, they launched at very low prices, $35 a month. And so we thought it was going to provide access to a broader set of consumers, and it really hasn't, because they've all raised their prices. And so what were called skinny bundles got fat quickly. So the average consumer, when you start adding it up, they're spending hundreds of dollars. If you've got cable, you're paying for a video game subscription, you're paying for Netflix and HBO Max and others, you're spending a couple $100 a month.
Right. So I've written a lot about China technology innovation, and of course knew about the TikTok Chinese version of it before I had even had the founder of the original Chinese version of TikTok on stage in Shanghai at one of my events. So then I was really kind of surprised to see it take off in the US and become such a phenomenon. And you think people actually know that it's a Chinese made app or Chinese source app?
I don't think Americans know, and I don't think it matters.
Okay.
And so a lot of like the fact that it's owned by a Chinese company has been much more of a political issue than it truly was one that users cared about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's highly addictive. It's, even though everybody else has created, as I showed earlier, short form video, TikTok reigns supreme. Yes, Instagram's product is very good, and the way Instagram gets you into it is great.
Mm-hmm.
And so and also Twitter's service is also, well, not Twitter services, some of the Facebook service also. I was thinking about Twitter's audio service, which is, they congratulate them, they did something fast. So I mean, I think the bigger issue around Chinese technology is I'm really concerned that some of the mistakes that the last administration made and some of the policies end up creating this Chinese techno-nationalism. I mean, the companies that the US have gone after, whether it's Huawei or TikTok, or even some of the camera companies and the drone companies, the Chinese view these as champion companies. They're very proud of them. And we'll end up with two internets. We'll end up with two metaverses,
Mm-hmm.
because we already have search in China. Baidu, like most of the major search engines, are not present. The social networks really aren't. What you end up with, though, is WeChat is the web, and that's, WeChat has no presence there. Yes, WhatsApp does. But so I think we're going to end up with multiple internets, and that's just our mistake, because it would be much better for US companies, and it would be much better for European and other companies if we have one internet.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But it doesn't look like it's happening that way. So it was interesting in covering China tech to see how the first Chinese entrepreneurs really copied a lot of the ideas from Silicon Valley. And then the reverse happened.
Yes.
That Facebook and others, Amazon and others, began copying what China tech had already innovated. So
Yes.
what's your opinion on that? Is that continuing now, or is that going to stop now because we are probably going to be seeing these dual universes?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue. When some of the things you're referring to, Alibaba showed the world that you could have a massive e-commerce business without having to hold inventory because it's a platform. 80% of the world's e-commerce today is platforms. People are not holding inventory, like they're not holding green shirts. But and if you look at the biggest e-commerce companies are pretty much all Asian, but a lot of the things that we're seeing in Asia are going to be copied here. Live stream shopping is a good example of it.
Oh yeah, YY was an incredible business when and that's actually a fairly old company now.
Right, but it's a $300 billion business in China. It's growing fast. It tripled in the last year, and it's not going to be as big in the US. We forecast it's going to be roughly a $25 billion business in the US, totally from China.
Yeah.
Like copied lock, stock, and barrel from China.
Right.
So I do think, and I also think that we're about to have a phenomenon of much less expensive phones, really strong feature phones, but much less expensive. And that comes out of what we've seen with Xiaomi and Huawei in China.
Absolutely. So not everybody wants to own Apple. So I wanted to also ask you about, you mentioned in your presentation something called altcoins, and I wanted to actually ask you about cryptocurrencies and which markets do you think are leading? How do you compare US, Europe, and China on the cryptocurrency adoption? And is it going to be important about who adopts it first?
So stepping back, let's talk about what adoption means. The great majority of cryptocurrency capitalization is speculation. It's investment and speculation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not surprising given what's happened to the price of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So today, roughly 60% of the capitalization is really two currencies. It's the majority is Bitcoin and then Ethereum. Right. But there are all these other currencies out there, Dogecoin and new one, Shiba Inu. I'm going to say I'm pronouncing it wrong, but there are all these other currencies out there, and that's where all the innovation is going to take place. The altcoins are because it's really they have these other coins which operate differently, and in some cases are backed with they're not just blockchain, but really what you have is the major uses around investment. Going forward, the uses are going to be around transfer of value, payments, and that's really where we're going to see the innovation. Right now, we're going to get to a point where the speculation it doesn't go on, and there are a lot of people who believe we're going to go through some busts and prices around Bitcoin. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I'll tell you the innovation isn't going to just come from the biggest coins.
Okay, I liked your point in your slides about how the net was all about info, and crypto and all these things are about the value. So it's two different drivers entirely of innovation. Yes, absolutely, and we'll see that. I mean, I'm very optimistic. I think there's some huge advantages in transactions and transfer of value via Bitcoin and via crypto. I mean, via cryptocurrency versus what you can do on the standard web. You can transfer value in a question of seconds. It takes days for other transactions to clear. Yeah, and also you mentioned how these companies that are kind of in the middle, like the payment platforms, the fintech platforms, are going to be the ones that are really going to be pushing this forward.
I think people are much more comfortable. I mean, if you look at digital consumer finance, what's taking off is stock trading and payments and transfers and insurance, and then banking's going to be way far behind because a lot of consumers and older consumers like to go to a bank. suddenly people start using services like Venmo and others, and they're used to transferring value very easily. They're used to
Right.
payments that, I mean, like, I don't give tips anymore. Like I give tips, but I don't give them anymore in currency. Like, I'm not giving paper money. I'm using Venmo.
When was the last
I
time
go to
you
the
used
barber.
paper? Yeah, sure. When was the last time you used paper money?
I don't use it very often.
Yeah,
I don't need to.
Yeah,
I
I only use it when I come back to New York City, when they say, "Oh, I won't take a credit card if it's under $5 or whatever." But anyhow, let me launch our poll here to see how up to date our people online are. So I have about 8 questions, and I'll just read them out. And I think everyone there in the audience can see these, but I'll read them out. Have you used crypto yet? Yes or no? And weigh in. This is just anonymous and it's just fun. So, no big deal. If you don't want to answer, it's okay too. How much time do you spend online daily? Less than 3 hours, 8 hours, more than 8 hours all the time? Those are the choices. Have you heard the term metaverse? Yes, no. I imagine most people say yes. What percentage of time do you shop online versus live? And the choices are at least 10%, at least 25%, or 25% or more. So the 25% or more is definitely winning. Are you actively into gaming? No, yes, or not much. Not much wins. During COVID, have you spent more time online? Of course, everyone's going to say yes to that. Okay, when will things go back to normal? Later in 2021, 2022, 2025, or far out in the future? Well, my vote was far out in the future, but I think most people said 2022. Have you been paid in Bitcoin yet? Most people said not yet. Have you purchased an NFT? Most people said not yet. So Michael, how do you weigh in on these things? Where are you? How do you stack up on all these? Have you been paid in Bitcoin yet?
I have. I've done transactions in Bitcoin, but then again, it's not the most natural thing to do yet, and so it's much easier to buy Bitcoin. But so it's somewhat forced.
Okay.
And so I haven't bought a car with Bitcoin yet. But,
You haven't bought? Have you bought a car online yet?
No, but I've helped a number of my friends buy a car. I live in New York City. I have to admit, I don't have a car, but I've had a number of friends where I've really recommended them go to Carvana and Vroom. It's a much better experience,
Yes.
and they show up with the car. I mean, it's literally, you can pick what you want. It's an incredible experience. And nobody wants to go into a dealership, and they don't want to have to worry about all that. They just want it. They want the car.
Oh yeah, I like these new subscription car buying or car subscription cards, right? Canoe out in Los Angeles has that model.
Yeah.
And they actually were tied with Chinese originally, but I just happen to know that as a little detail, as background for all you out there. Okay, so which sector do you see changing the most? You mentioned esports. I guess you said gaming, right? Gaming is, but I don't know. I was surprised, like half the people are into gaming. I've never done gaming.
Yeah, I think that if you look at 60% of Americans are gamers, the percentage is much higher when you go outside. If you go to Asia, China, and if you add in like casual games which you play on a phone, it's a much bigger population. I think it's going to change, but I think it's consumers are going to change. I think the things that consumers do inside of those games is going to expand. It's very difficult to develop a new game, and so I don't think we're going to see innovation out of the tech platforms. I think we're going to see the innovation in gaming companies, as I've said. I think the tech platforms will end up buying them.
Okay.
So I think that so you'll see change there. You'll see change in people's behavior and in their usage. You're going to see a lot of change in video because we're going to have fewer and fewer consumers are going to subscribe to cable, and they're going to use both paid and free services to watch their programs.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You were at MTV, so this must have influenced you greatly. And you were at MTV during a pretty rapid expansion of MTV. So tell us about that experience and how that's helped shape your career, and also why you became a consultant.
So I've spent 90% of my career as a consultant. And
Okay.
when I started off consulting, I'm like I said, I'm convinced I want to consult to media companies. And remember, they used to call it new media.
Oh yeah.
And so,
Yes.
right. So I was very fortunate. I got to work with some of the leaders in e-commerce and in computers and in mobile and going so many years back. And and of course, media, telecom companies, not only telecom, but also television companies and video production. So I've done this my whole career. MTV and Viacom were my clients for 10 years. And they just asked one day, they said, you know, the company, would you like to come and be the president of the company? And what was interesting about it is that unique moment.
You were at McKinsey then, right?
I was at McKinsey.
Yeah.
Yes, I was first at Booz Allen. I was a senior partner at Booz Allen, and then McKinsey stole me away from Booz Allen. I was a senior partner and ran McKinsey's media and internet practice. And then I went to MTV, and it was this unique moment, the moment where so much of the world shifted. You had MySpace and then Facebook, and then you just had so many innovations coming along. And I think what's happened is these have just picked up steam. Going back to, if you think about it, it's now been over 10 years since the launch of the App Store. You've got 14 years since the iPhone was released in 2007. So you keep seeing this acceleration, and what were innovations in the past, every one of these companies has had to innovate. MTV had to be in the vanguard from the beginning because it was dealing with an audience of 18 to 24-year-olds. And those people are allergic to the past. They anything that's history goes into a hefty bag, and they're much more interested in what's next. And so the most important influence of those experiences really came down to seeing what's going to be next and getting out in front of it.
Okay. So you think today's changes are going to have as much impact as yesterday's changes?
I even more so.
More so. Okay.
Even more so because everyone's walking around now with a phone, pretty powerful computer in your pocket.
Yeah.
And the opportunities are endless. Everybody's been looking about what follows the phone, and it is Metaverse. Metaverse is really ending up being a proxy for a next set of not technologies, but experiences, and the way kids and adults experience technology and media.
Okay, so we have a couple of people who have their hands raised. So I'm going to allow Ron Yee to, I've acknowledged him and asking him to unmute. Ron, you're being acknowledged here in the little participants room. Okay, should I go on to, okay, he's not talking. Andrea, how about you? Well, somehow.
You take, I don't know, somehow we have to take the mute off of these questions.
I've asked them to unmute. Unmute, guys. Please unmute. Your hands are raised, but you're not saying anything. Oh, this is terrible. Okay, well, look, when you're ready to talk, let us know.
We're going to do this, Rebecca, we're going to do this next with VR headsets on, and we'll be in Facebook Horizon or somebody else's VR room.
Okay, so what do you think of Zoom anyhow?
I mean, I think that Zoom has, Zoom's another technology, took off. If you think about beginning of 2020, a lot of people were using other programs. They were using Hangouts, so they were using Skype. Zoom has just made this very easy. Hangouts, as Google has innovated against it. Teams, Microsoft, if you're using Microsoft 365, it's very easy for you to do Teams. It was just like entirely integrated. Google has integrated video into Hangouts. So we're like let's do an old-fashioned phone call.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I was doing a lot of research for a new book, and I did so many of my interviews over Zoom, which was really great. Anyhow, I also did a lot of in-person ones too. So I guess this is a hybrid experience. Some of your world is online, and some of your world is actually physical world. So we're all going to be in this kind of hybrid blend.
Where this has been important for me is my team. Last year around the first week of March, we closed our office. Everybody scattered around the world, and yet we have a town hall meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week. We have everybody gets on. We had no blip in our work. All of our work continued. We're all comfortable. We're, as a management consulting firm, we work in teams. We realized that we didn't have to have people sitting around. Now people are coming back to our office, but it is an incredibly different world in terms of how our teams collaborate. They're much more productive. They've been able to get more done, and they're closer as a group. Now we have challenges of mentorship and that sort of casual serendipitous conversations that happen in an office. And so a lot of our team are coming back. And then we had people who are just graduated from college and they're stuck in 1 or 2 room apartment with a roommate, or others who are stuck with a screaming baby. So they're very happy to get to the office.
Sure. Yeah. That's understandable. So anything you would like to add about, what's next for you? Actually, I had one other question. How do you do your research then? Tell us a little bit about how you conduct the research, how many people are polled, and where are they, and who are they?
So first of all, we have people on our team who really understand how do you gather consumer insights. So we don't use third parties. We create every survey we do, every question, every focus group, we conducted ourselves. And the thing is, because we know the questions to ask, and we've had the pattern recognition for doing that over time. So we have clients come to us with questions like, how should I price my subscription service? And we know how to ask the questions in a way and how to do things like conjoins. So that's how we do it. We sometimes, to doing research, there's nothing beats going out and standing in front of a store and asking people what they're going to do and why they're there, and whether they're going to do curbside pickup or they're actually going into a store. We find that's really important. There's a value. Zoom has made it much easier to do focus groups because you don't have to stand behind a two-way glass and two-way mirror, and so we are really proficient at doing consumer research, and we do so much of it that we're able to look at results and say that makes sense or that doesn't. Or we asked that question before. So I showed earlier, like the number of services, video services that people are using. We've asked that question every year. We ask it in different ways, and that's why we're confident the numbers are going up.
Yeah, so you can measure the long-term trends then. Allows you to be more predictive. So you talked a bit about the companies that are really leading the charge here. Is there one person or maybe a couple of innovators that really impress you, who are ahead of the pack?
Oh, there are so many, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Well, you're not gonna mention Elon Musk.
What's fascinating is each of these businesses, in each of these experiences, there are different innovators. And so you can see that, like, I'm a big fan of VR games, independent developers. There's a company called Servios, which is out of Santa Monica. They developed Walking Dead, and they developed they've developed also Westworld, and they're doing other games. They're incredible. You look at some of the innovations in games that are coming out of 2K, like NBA 2K. I mean, these games, they show you the future. So I mean, you see innovation everywhere you go. As I mentioned earlier, Carvana and Vroom, these people took something that was like the dusty old used car lot and turned it into a modern tech company, which is worth, by the way, more than the dealer groups, and in some cases more than the car manufacturers themselves.
Yeah. So how do you stay in touch with all of these new innovations? Are you a gamer yourself, and how many hours do you spend online?
I am a super consumer of media.
Okay.
Not a big sleeper, so I spend a great deal of time, but I'm surrounded by a team of people who wake up every day and think about, how is the world going to change? We tell everybody who comes to work for us, you must live in the future. And they may not live in the future forever. So we have people who are like experts on AR and VR, but they certainly are living in the future, and they consume everything about the topic they're interested in, and they post it all to a Slack channel inside of our team. And so I am usually up to date. I know exactly what's happening in a moment because I have a team of people who are intensely smart, know the businesses inside and out, are now living in the future.
That's great. All right, living in the future. Well, good. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all of those who participated. And sorry we couldn't unmute you, or we couldn't get you to talk, but maybe next year, maybe into the future. So I just want to share a few details about our upcoming shows. Today's show was a little bit of a departure for us because we usually do our Ask a VC Anything show. So the next show is going to be coming up November 10th. Actually, next week, we're in Hong Kong with our annual Hong Kong event, and with keynote with John Chambers, and a debate over the best Asian tech hub, whether it's Hong Kong, Singapore, or maybe Tokyo. We have Ask a VC with William Balbine. He's really one of the leading China tech startup investors. And instead of running away from China, they're running toward China. So that should be interesting to hear from him. And we have 3 founders who are going to be pitching. One is in blockchain. So I heard the pitches last night, which was really interesting. I think these are good pitches. And so stay tuned for that. That is actually, depending upon your time zone, November 3rd, 8:30 Hong Kong time, November 2nd, 5:30 California time. So then after that, November 18th, we have Andrew Chung from 1955 Capital. And all of these people are, leaders in their fields, like Michael is. And we really appreciate your sharing your expertise and your thought. And you really are a thought leader in this field. So thank you again. For all those who enjoyed this and would like to see Michael again, maybe in the future next year, please join us. Join us, Silicon Dragon Circle. And you can find everything that we do on our website, Silicon Dragon Ventures. All the bells and whistles are there. Okay, so I'm going to thank Michael one last time and thank all of you for staying with us. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Rebecca. This was so much fun. Please, definitely, I'll come back. And be safe, everybody.
Yeah, be safe. All right. Take care now. All right. Bye-bye.